Hello, hello. Welcome to Andrea Thrives Small Business Webinars. Today is Tuesday, February 13th. You are attending our weekly webinars created to help New Jersey business owners start, grow, and thrive. If you are new here, welcome. We hope you stick with us for a long time and continue to attend our webinars and can find value in our services. And if you've been attending our webinars, have been counseled, we appreciate your support. And if you are attending this for the first time, then we would love for you to tell us in the chat where you heard about us, if you were referred to us, all the good stuff. My name is Uzma Sheikh, and I am your host for these webinars. And I'm a consultant here at NJSBDC. NJSBDC stands for New Jersey Small Business Development Centers. We are a network, a statewide program powered by the SBA, which stands for Small Business Administration, and partners to help small businesses in New Jersey with three main things. And those things are no-cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, just like this one that you're attending, and exclusive small business resources. On the map to the right, that is the state of New Jersey, and divided up in all the counties. And in some counties, you will see that there are small SBDC logos. That's where our in-person physical regional centers are. So if you are ever interested in, coming in and saying hi, making an appointment, we highly recommend that you go to njsbdc.com, find out where one of our centers are closest to you, and make that appointment and go in and say hi. If you can hear me and see me okay, that's perfect. If ever during this time, your audio or video, something goes out, then please let us know. And also in the chat, I see responses coming in. So thank you so much for sharing how you found us. That's awesome. So also let us know that if this is your first time registering or wanting to register, or what your business is about, how you came into business, or you're going to register for another business, then also let us know. I always like to say that you might find a supporter, a cheerleader, an investor. Feel free to share your contact information if you'd like to network. Moving on, you are attending a multi-session webinar series. So this webinar is the 14th, I believe, in the series. And we started this back in November. A lot of people have found value in this, and a lot of people have asked to be counseled based on this topic, and that is how to register your business with $0 and just NJSBDC support. So we hope that if you are an inspiring entrepreneur, you will find value and you will be able to start, grow, and thrive. So on the agenda, we have a couple of headlines that I'd like to show you, things that happen in the small business community that we think you should be aware of. Then we have the presentation, and then we will have the Q&A session. These are the headlines. As soon as I'm done sharing my screen, I will put those headlines, the links for those, in the chat. First is a press release from the SBA. SBA trains 200,000 Boots to Business Entrepreneurship course graduate, that's a milestone. Federal program helps veterans transition from service to startup. So Boots to Business B2B program, if you haven't heard about it, we highly recommend you check it out, especially if you're a veteran or if you know a veteran who would like to have a startup and become an entrepreneur. So celebrates 11 years of B2B instructor achievements nationwide and overseas. Let's see. B2B is part of the entrepreneurial track of the U.S. Department of Defense's DoD Transition Assistance Program, TAP. Offers the same curriculum as B2B to veterans of any era, National Guard and Reserve members, and military spouses without access to a military installation. So they have provided all these links, revenue readiness, things like that. If you're interested, highly recommend that you check out this link once it's shared. Second is a press release from the NJEDA, a great resource to keep in touch with. That stands for New Jersey Economic Development Authority. We always like to share news from them. Press release says NJEDA Board Award over $25 million in grants to support real estate projects in Atlantic City and Newark. So approved $25.1 million under the Activation, Revitalization, and Transformation Part program to support projects that will help revitalize Atlantic City and Newark, two of New Jersey's largest cities, hard hit by a downturn in economic activity due to the pandemic. A total of 13 projects were approved for grants that will focus on that rehabilitation. Let's see. And these are all the entities, the 13 projects, information about them. Atlantic City and Newark. If you're one of them, congratulations. And if you'd like to find more about this, then please visit. Third is also a press release from NJEDA. NJEDA approves phase 2 of Child Care Facilities Improvement Program. Excuse me. Phase 1 of the program has approved over $27 million in funding for 134 child care centers to date. Approved phase 2. So this is a $5 million program that will provide grants between $10,000 and $20,000 to registered family child care homes, FCCs, to purchase furniture, fixtures, equipment supporting the improvement of health, safety, accessibility. New Jersey is home to over 1,300 registered FCCs, serving 6,500 children across all 21 counties. Pretty cool. Going back to our presentation. I will share these links as soon as I'm done sharing my screen. So things to keep in mind, housekeeping rules that we like to follow and we ask you to follow. Type questions in the Q&A box. So as you can see in the bar below, the Zoom bar below, there is a chat box, which I see responses coming in from, and a Q&A box. That's where you should share your questions so that we can address them in the end. If you complete a brief survey, you will receive the slides from the speaker. It's not via email. You just complete the Google form quickly. As soon as you hit submit, you will be taken to a new screen, new page, and that will give you the link. And this webinar is being recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel, as well as our video library. So today, session 13th, now 14th, the ultimate guide to registering a new business. Vanessa has been doing an awesome job since November at this webinar series, and you are attending session 13th. Vanessa, welcome, and thank you for doing this for us. I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Uzma, thank you for all that valuable information. I'm going to share my screen now. So here we go. Let's get this up and we are good to go. All good? Okay.
All good.
So thank you for joining today. I hope everybody is cozy if you're sitting in the snow, and well, not hopefully in the snow, you're in your homes and enjoying the beautiful snow and not having to shovel later, which I think we probably all do have to do, unfortunately, but we've been lucky so far. We're going to talk a little bit about business structures today and starting your business, creating your limited liability, even though we're going to discuss other forms of businesses and a little bit around the different types of businesses that are available to you. We're going to focus primarily on the LLC, limited liability company. And really, as we go along, explain how the SBDC is partnering with small businesses in the state to assist in no-cost counseling to help with your startup, your growth, your maintenance, strategic planning. A wonderful resource for you to take advantage of. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think the gist of this primarily is we want to make sure you know that we are here to actually walk you through the creation of the LLC. So all said and done, you don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to hire somebody. Our services are free. and we will take you through the steps to forming the business, getting your tax ID, and registering. So we'll get into that. But right now, we're going to just start with just a little background information on what is available to you in terms of business structure. So there are multiple types of structures in which you can form your business. So once again, we're going to talk about some of the different structures that exist. Primarily also the formation and registration process, once you select the type of structure that you would like to form, and a little bit about New Jersey, the regulations involved with forming a business, some of the tax implications depending on what type of business structure you choose. And always important as you're putting your plan together, understanding and acknowledging that there'll be a certain amount of cash funding that will be required to start your business. And that's, again, what we're here to do as mentors is to see what you have, what you need. Are there additional needs? Are there additional requirements for you to operate successfully in New Jersey? And ultimately to grow. And not just grow, honestly, but really grow profitably, because that's the key. The whole point of being in business is to make money. And so we want to make sure that you're being smart with your formation. We want to make sure that you understand what needs to be done to be profitable, and just be a resource for you throughout your journey. So the first business structure that we're going to talk about is the sole proprietorship. You may have heard that mentioned in the past. What does that mean? Basically, when you are a sole proprietor, you have a source of income. Maybe you've created a little business for yourself, and you'd like to be identified under a trade name. You want the business to be called something, and you want to be recognized as that business in the state. So in order to do that, the trade name is an application that you would file for at the county level. The application would be right on the county clerk's website of your respective county, and you would apply, determine the name that you'd like to go by. The name has to be unique within your county, and it costs about $50, $60, relatively inexpensive. You would use your tax ID number, could be your social security number. You're perfectly welcome to use your social security number for your tax ID for this business. However, nowadays you're seeing more and more sole proprietors deciding to go ahead, go to the IRS website and obtain what is known as an EIN, which stands for Employer Identification Number. This is free, does not cost anything to get an EIN. It can be done right online through the IRS website. And what that does is it does serve as some extra layer of protection of hiding or protecting your social security number from the public. Because very often when you're transacting business, or you're making purchases, or you're taking care of taxes, the question will be asked, let me have your tax ID. And if you're constantly throwing in your social security number for this kind of stuff, there's more risk of potentially having something happen. So the EIN is not a bad idea, but it's not required for a sole proprietor. You are allowed to use your personal banking accounts to deposit money from your transactions. You do not need a separate business bank account. It's very simple. If there's a transaction and someone pays you for the services or the goods, you can deposit it right into your personal bank account, no questions asked. Tax filings are very simple. The tax filing default for a sole proprietor is to use your personal income tax return with an attached Schedule C. Schedule C is just an IRS tax document that will identify the revenue that you may have received from the business, any expenses you might have incurred, and ultimately, what is your net income? That net income will get passed through to your rolled up into your personal tax return. And if there are additional taxes that need to be paid on that income, it'll get handled. There's no legal separation between yourself, your assets, and your business. So you are the business is you. It is not a separate legal entity. And the downside of that in all of this is that now you have no liability protection. So if anything goes wrong, if there's any problem, if there's any sort of debt issue or lawsuit, you are at risk personally. Your assets are at risk, and you really do open yourself up to a liability. So depending on the type of business that you're doing, something might be very harmless, like knitting scarves, and it's a hobby. You just kind of take that hobby to the next level. Perhaps a sole proprietorship is good for you. But if you're deciding that you want to be, say, an interior decorator, and now I'm using examples, you're going into people's houses and you're, potentially knocking over $1 million vases, maybe you want to think a step up in terms of your business structure to protect yourself legally. Okay, so next slide. That takes us to our next company on this continuum that we'll talk about is the LLC, Limited Liability Company. Now, the limited liability company is a really great business structure offering because it allows you to really still have the simplicity of the sole proprietor. However, you are given a certain degree of liability and protection in running your business, in that your business is now separate from you personally. So it's a little bit more money to form, not much. So $128 in New Jersey, you can form your LLC. And then there is an annual maintenance dues that are required every year. Around the year anniversary of your formation, you will be prompted to pay your $75. And that is done by something called an annual report. It's all done online. It's called filing an annual report. There's nothing really reporting about it except let me, have your credit or debit card and please pay your $75. So some people think, oh, once a year, I got to do reports for my business. Not at all. It really is just a matter of checking in with the state, paying your dues, and going on your merry way until the next year when your $75 are due again. The LLC does require you to have a separate tax ID number. We're no longer using our social security number. You are going to the IRS website. You are applying for the EIN. Again, that stands for Employer Identification Number. That is your tax ID. The tax ID will be assigned to your LLC. The legal names must match, and you are required to have a separate business bank account. That is a mandatory requirement when you form an LLC. You have to go to the bank, you bring your certificate of formation, you bring your letter from the IRS with the tax ID, your identification, and a separate banking account will be opened in the name of the business. All transactions that occur, if you're receiving revenue from your clients, customers, will be deposited into the business bank account. And then from there, as the owner of the business, you are welcome to pull the money as you need to either fund the business or to pay yourself as the owner. But it is, as you can see from the name, it is just a limited liability. They're really, if you're looking for like the full kit and caboodle in terms of the total corporate liability protection, the corporation is the vehicle that you would want to choose. Corporations are the strongest in terms of liability protection. They require the most paperwork. They're more expensive to maintain. The tax filings are a lot more complicated, which reminds me, I'm going to back up to the LLC. I did forget to mention one of the beauties of the LLC is that LLCs are allowed to choose how they wish to be taxed. So there's no separate requirement for an LLC tax filing. If you're an LLC and you're the only owner of that LLC, you are permitted, and it will default to being taxed as if you were a sole proprietor. That's that Schedule C that we talked about. Doesn't mean you're a sole proprietor. It just means that you get to choose to use the sole proprietor tax method, which is the Schedule C. If you are more than one person, known as a multi-member LLC, the option really typically would default to this Form 1065. The 1065 is typically used in partnership agreements. It doesn't mean that you're legally a partnership. That's a different legal implication. You're a multi-member LLC with the option to be taxed as if you were a partnership. And then you can also, as an LLC, whether you're the single member or a multi-member, you have the option to choose to be taxed as a corporation. And that we're going to get into a little bit more about that and why you might want to consider that. But that's the LLC tax filing choices. Now back to the corporation. Corporations require board of directors, shareholder meetings. You must have bylaws. As I said, it's a more complicated tax filing process. The separate tax return for the company, and you would be subject to a corporate tax rate. After the corporate tax rate is, I guess, imposed on the company's profits, whatever's left is in the form of what we would know as dividends, which would go to the shareholders. Another tax would be levied on the owners of the business, because not only do you pay does the company pay a corporate tax on its income, whatever is left is now taxed once again at the shareholder level. So that's why you hear corporations are subject to double taxation, and it's the downside. If you're a small business, who needs to be taxed twice? If you're the owner, and there's only a few owners, so you're losing tax, you're losing profit from your initial corporate tax, and now you're paying personally. It doesn't make much sense. So that's why we're going to talk a little bit about the idea that if you are, and for whatever reason, as a small business decide to incorporate, you can elect to be a S Corp. As opposed to the original formation of a C Corp, you can elect to be known as an S Corp. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. But what I wanted to say as well is you might be asking yourself, well, why do small businesses, why would they even decide to incorporate? That doesn't even seem like it makes sense, especially if you're the only owner. There are some industries where incorporating might make the most sense because of the structure of the company, the sound structure of the company, the protection. If you're a general contractor or a home builder or dealing with equipment or dealing with trucking, there are certain industries where if you were to do business with different vendors, some vendors only wish to really do business with a company that is incorporated because of the minimum requirements on insurance and the protection that is provided. So there could be a reason why. And so if that is the case, then we talk about perhaps incorporating, but then filing to be an S Corp, which I'm going to talk about, will get rid of that double taxation. But before I move on to that, I just also want to say, in all cases, whether you're a sole proprietor and you do it through the county clerk, or whether you are an LLC and corporation, these formations are done online through the state portal. Once those formations are complete in what you had to do to legally form that business structure. There is the last piece of it. New Jersey requires you to take your company and register to do business with the Division of Revenue, Division of Taxation, and it's for tax purposes. That is a step that is often forgotten, and I'm going to talk more about it, but I just want to make it clear that no matter which business you form, you're not done. You have to then go to the state portal, and you have to take that business that you just formed and you have to register it with New Jersey in order to actually transact business. And that is for regulatory and state and tax purposes. Okay, so the C Corp versus the S Corp. So what happens is if you become an S Corp after you have incorporated, you file for S Corp status, it really is a tax designation. It takes your corporation and it allows for that corporation to be taxed as an S Corp. And that now eliminates the corporate tax rate. The all income from the company does now immediately get passed through to the shareholders. And not to complicate things, but that S Corp option, believe it or not, is also an option for LLC owners. What does that mean? LLC owners are owners of their companies. They're not employees, and they are otherwise known as members. So members, owners, those are interchangeable in LLC world. So as LLC owners or members, at the end of the day, you pay yourself through the profit. You're not on a salary. It's not an expense line item to pay yourself. At the end of the day, after all your expenses are incurred, if there's any money left, that's what you pay yourself. And you are subject to self-employment taxes. They can be cumbersome. You are responsible for all the withholdings that you would normally have been taken out of your paycheck had you a W-2 with a company that if you were working as a paid employee. Now, as an owner of a business, you are now going to, out of your profit line, have to pay all your federal, your state, local, Social Security, unemployment, I guess Medicare. You have these self-employment taxes, and at a certain threshold, it becomes it can become a quite heavy burden and when you get to a certain income level. And that's something that you can only know if you talk to your accountant. If you get to a point, depending on your tax bracket, depending on whether you filed jointly with the spouse, there'll be somebody who has to look at your books and say, you know what, you might be better off right now to change your election and no longer be taxed either as a partnership or as a sole proprietor. Time to think about being taxed as an S Corp. And what that allows you to do is now, as owners of your business, you can put yourself on payroll. You can pay yourself a salary. It is now an expense of your business. And by doing that, you are lowering your income and lowering the burden of the self-employment tax. And as employees of your company, you're now both an employee and an employer of your company. So you'll get a paycheck with the necessary withholding, and you'll pay, as the employee of your company, you'll pay into your payroll, just like you would have withholdings into your tax obligation. But as the employer, you're paying half the payroll taxes, and that's a business expense. And so that also lowers your net income. So not to get heavy into the accounting, it's just something we want you to be aware of, that there might be a time in your journey as owners of an LLC that you may wish to change your tax filing. So both the corporation and the LLC can choose S Corp status. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. Okay. Now we're going to really focus on the LLC for the remainder of the presentation. We are going to talk about the formation, registration, and tax ID, the process of getting a tax ID when you form your LLC. We like to say, get it right the first time. There are a lot of moving pieces. It's simple enough that it can be done by you, except that there are so many places where you might pick the wrong thing or not know exactly what you're doing and then find yourself in a pickle down the road. So it's kind of this situation where we don't believe you have to go out and pay $800,000 to a third party to form your business and to elect things that you don't need and make you pay for things you don't need. We think you can do it yourself, but by working with the SBDC, working with the counselor, we'll walk you through it. You'll understand it. You'll get to see what the process is. And I think in the end, it's going to be better for you because you'll understand the terminology. You'll know where to go on the New Jersey State Portal for what you need. You'll know how to navigate what's required of you. It's not just done in some vacuum by some person you'll never see again, and then you have no idea what's what. So I think the best step forward, I mean, even if for whatever reason you have decided or you are going with a third party and paying them to do it, be aware of what they're doing, understand what they're doing. One of the biggest pitfalls we have seen, which to me, I just don't understand it to this day, that third party companies or organizations or legal Zooms or attorneys, whoever you're paying to form your business, they are legally forming the business and they are probably getting your tax ID. What they're not doing, and they're not even telling you that you have to do it, is they're not registering your business with the state in order to transact. They're leaving that up to you, which I suppose would be fine, but it seems that nobody knows that there is one more step required in New Jersey. So we make sure that not only do we form the business with you, we get your tax ID, then we go ahead and we help you with the registration process. So you're done, you have everything you need, and it takes about an hour. And now you can go ahead and work and transact, open up your business bank account, and you're good to go. So it's a big benefit and a big, I think, value that we offer in offering this process to sit with you to get it done. We could do it over the phone. We could do it in person, whatever you're most comfortable with. Okay. So this is what I just went into. Once formed, you cannot forget to register the company. And I just added the link there. When you fill out the survey after the presentation, you will get a copy of the slides. You'll have access to all these links so you can play around, you can look, you can see what it is we're talking about. Once again, it is often overlooked and really could be a problem down the road because you're not legally allowed to do business in New Jersey unless you register. And just having a document saying that you're an LLC does not permit you to sell goods or services in the state. That just is the fact that you formed a business. You must take that extra step in order to actually work. So it doesn't cost anything. It's the registration piece is no cost. Getting the IRS tax ID to no cost. The only time you have to pay anything is when you're doing the formation, which for the LLC it's $125, and it's paid directly to the state. There is a new federal requirement that happens after the fact. I'm now going to say this is probably step 4. We always said it's a 3-step process, but this is now step 4. The federal government gives you 90 days to fill out what's known as a beneficial ownership information report. That's the link. You'll get something. I believe there after registration there is some paperwork that gets mailed to you and gives you the instructions. Basically, the federal government wants to now keep track of all the LLCs, who's forming them, who owns them, and what your percent ownership is. So it's just one more step. And I believe it has been put into place now for the LLC because there's just been too much money laundering and probably fraud and shell companies set up because LLCs really haven't historically been too regulated. They're kind of a state by state regulated business structure, and now the government, the federal government, I should say, wants to maintain a database of what's going on. So it is what it is. So what you'll need to have when we go to form your LLC, you're going to need a unique business name. Your name must be unique in the state of New Jersey. So there's a database. You go ahead, look it up, make sure that it's not taken. You'll need your EIN. Again, we get that from the IRS. Doesn't cost anything. There are some codes that we'll look up as we're going through the process. You'll need an industry code for the New Jersey, as well as the NAICS, which is just a national industry classification code. The purpose is really just for statistical purposes to know what kinds of businesses are forming. So it's pretty simple to do. You're going to make sure to have a registered agent when you form your LLC. The registered agent can be you. You can be your own registered agent. The state needs a name, an email address, a phone number, and a physical location of where they can reach you. So in most cases, a small business will choose to be their own registered agent, and it's not a problem and it's accepted. Sometimes people do not wish to have their name or address public in any way. And so if that's the case, you would want to hire a registered agent, and there will be a cost associated with it. There are established registered agents in the state. It has to be in New Jersey. There has to be a location. They have to truly be registered agents. You can't just, pick a post office box and say, that's my registered agent. I've seen them as little as $49 a year. They'll provide the service to be your registered agent. But as long as it's a physical New Jersey address, it could be yourself, it could be maybe you have a parent or you'd rather use a different address, it's fine. But if it's not going to be someone that you designate, then you'll have to hire one and pay. If you're more than one person, you are required to have an operating agreement for a multi-member LLC. Basically, it doesn't have to be done by a lawyer, but depending on how complicated your situation is, maybe not a bad idea. Sometimes as a business, you might need to hire a lawyer. It might make sense to hire an accountant. You really want to make sure that this agreement is clean and organized and truly spells out what's happening, who's contributing what's the initial capital contribution of everybody, what is the job requirements, what's the profit sharing. If the business were to dissolve tomorrow, how are we going to distribute the assets? This should all be in writing. And when you go to open up a business bank account, if you're a multi-member LLC, you'll typically be asked for it. Just reiterating here that it costs $125 to open an LLC. There's a $350 processing fee, or you may use an e-check, and it will take a debit or a credit card. You'll also need the names, addresses, social security numbers, and the ownership percentages of all the members or owners, as that will all get deposited into the registration application. And as well as part of that will be needed for your certificate of formation. So this goes back to how you wish to be taxed. So remember, you're going to be able to choose how you wish to be taxed. If you're just one person, unless you otherwise have a reason, you'll typically would be defaulted to that Schedule C tax filing. More than one person, the 1065, which is the partnership tax filing, is usually the way to go. And either way, you will always have the option to file as a corporation your taxes if you choose to. You're going to need to know if your sale of your goods or services are subject to state sales tax. So there is a booklet on the Division of Taxation website. I have a link to it further in this presentation, where it will spell out as best as possible what the sales tax requirements are. Most goods are subject to sales tax in New Jersey, and most services are exempt from sales tax. But there are exceptions, and you'll need to know if your particular good or service falls within an exception. An example of that is that even though clothes, general basic clothing, is exempt from sales tax, accessories are not. So you may have a scarf or something like, maybe well, scarf is usually the example I give, but certain accessories, belts, they may be subject to sales tax. And even though a service may be exempt, you think of like, general, like, therapists and doctors and consultants and counselors, and you think of most services being exempt. However, there are examples such as housekeepers, cleaning services. They're not exempt from sales tax. If they come to clean your home, or if the company comes to clean your office, or whatever the case may be, there is a fee, whatever they're going to charge, plus New Jersey state sales tax. So that's important. That's something we can discuss. If you are somebody who is going to be collecting and remitting sales tax to the state, we can show you how to do that. That is something that you are required to do. You're required to hold the sales tax until the end of the quarter, at which time you will report right online to New Jersey Division of Taxation and remit any sales tax you may have collected over the course of the quarter. There are additional registrations, licenses, certifications required depending on certain businesses that you may be involved with. General contractor, handyman, any type of contracting work done requires the general contractor's license. A home health aid company requires a license. Food safety procedures are required for if you're handling food. So there are some additional regulatory items that you may need to be aware of. And that's something that we can go over, and we can show you the site where to go to make sure that you have everything that you need. And then you'll need to identify a bank where you wish to open your business bank account. The most important piece of advice we can give is you do not want to pay monthly fees. So try to find a bank that will work with you, that will have a plan or have some kind of a program that, yes, please open your bank account with us. Maybe you need a certain amount of money in order to avoid the fee. Maybe you need to use a debit card for the account a couple times a month in order to avoid the fee. The last thing you need as a small business is to have 15, 20, 25, 30 bucks withdrawn from your business bank account every month just because you're trying to run a business. These are some of the links that will be handy for you when you get the slides. The business licenses and registrations that go above and beyond the general registration of the business. The booklet where you'll have all the information on what's taxable, what is not. You do have income tax requirements. This is something that's very important. I think that link there is just for the state, but it also goes for the federal government. When you are self-employed, you are required to pay income tax, and not just at the end of the year. So even though we talked about how you wish to be taxed, that has to do with probably your year-end tax filing. In addition to that, you are required to pay estimated income taxes over the course of the year, usually done on a quarterly basis. And you have that set up, and you can set that up with the federal government through the IRS. You could set that up through the state as well for your state income taxes. The government does not want to wait until April 15th to get any money that is owed to them. You probably are not in a position that would want to not pay taxes all year and then all of a sudden see that you have some crazy tax bill, it's risky. It's not something that is good for you, but it's also not allowed. Government wants to see money coming in over the course of the year. So as long as you're creating income and the threshold is not that high, I don't have it off the top of my head. I was just looking at this last night. As long as you're making a couple $100 in income or a couple, $1,000 or so of income on the federal level, you're required to pay income tax on it and quarterly. If you have questions about hiring employees, there are two different ways that you can have people working for you, whether you start a payroll through the W-2, W-4 system. You also have the option not to have a payroll. You can hire independent contractors to do work for you. That requires the contractor to fill out a W-9, and you as the business will issue a 1099 at the end of the year, so that party would be, or business would be, responsible for paying into their own income taxes. So these are kinds of things that we talk about, educate you on. We have webinars on different topics that go into really much of this. As you're starting your business, there's a certain amount of cash that you're going to need. You're going to have a certain amount of money that you're going to need just to open the doors or make that first sale. So we talk about that as part of the business planning. How much money do you need to actually even operate the business as you're up and running? What are going to be the monthly expenses? Are you going to be taking in enough revenue to cover those operating expenses? We try to educate you on financial literacy, budgeting. If you do need additional sources of capital for maybe startup costs or a project that you're working on, there is lending. We work with banks and lenders, and we assist you, and we will prep you for the loan process. That means writing your business plan, putting together your income statement projections, making sure that it's understood what the loan ask is going to be and what the use of the funds are going to be. These are all things that are going to be analyzed by the lender. Make sure that you understand, what credit rating would be required of you. And also, in any kind of a small business lending situation, there'll always be some question asked about what your personal capital investment in the project is going to be. So we deal primarily with SBA lending, but not necessarily. But we have people on staff who have a great deal of knowledge on financing and maybe how to help navigate your needs in terms of borrowing, if that is an issue. And really can't emphasize enough the importance of understanding basic accounting. We're not all I'm not an accountant, not a lawyer. I have a business background, but if you're at a point in your life where you want to kind of take that hobby to the next level, or you want to start a side hustle, or you're, in an industry where you now want to do it for yourself, there's going to have to be some piece of you that is willing to learn basic accounting, understanding financial statements, the differences between an income statement, a balance sheet, your cash flow. You could always outsource the bookkeeping if you don't want pay for an accountant. That's fine. It's sometimes, I think, very valuable depending on the type of work you're doing. If it's complicated, you want to do it right. But having said that, if you don't understand your books and you don't understand your spending, you're not going to be profitable, or you're going to think you're profitable, but you're not. So it does, over time, it benefits you to take advantage of all these educational programs that we offer in terms of improving or teaching financial literacy, teaching basic accounting. We have a couple of classes. It may be worth it for you. And I think you'd end up being more successful at the end if you are at least understanding of the numbers. And this goes with bookkeeping, whether you want to use your notebook, an Excel spreadsheet, or you feel like learning QuickBooks, there has to be some organized way of managing your transactions so that you're comfortable with it. And we will always tell you when we think, hey, you really need to hire an accountant, or better left to a lawyer, talk to an insurance agent. This is something that we really want to get on the phone with a lender to see what their thoughts are. So, we all have different backgrounds as counselors at the SBDC. Some may be stronger in certain areas. Some are just, we have people that just would want to talk to you about your marketing and your social media. But where and when we feel that you need to get expert counsel, we're going to tell you, and we're going to explain why. And just a little sidebar, we will set up your state certifications. If you're interested in procurement, government contracting, becoming a woman, minority-owned business, or veteran, disabled veteran, there's now in New Jersey, the LGBTQ plus state certification. We can walk through that process. There's plenty of webinars that we've done on this. So that's something that we can help you with. And as Uzma talked about in the beginning, we work closely with the NJEDA. That's really a tremendous resource for New Jersey businesses in the state. The site is constantly showing what kind of financing and incentives that there are through either low interest loans, grants for different industry or businesses in the state. And our programming, usually it's free. Sometimes there's a small cost. Everything can be found on our website. Definitely something to take advantage of. And we will remain a resource for you as you start and grow your business. And with that, that is the end of my formal presentation. We have 2 sets of QR codes. The top one is if you are not in business at all right now and you want to actually, you need help, you're really like a startup at this point, and you really want to go through that whole initial consultation and then set up an appointment to have us walk you through the formation, registration of your business, best to click the top QR code when you get the slides, use the link there. If you're already in business and you want to be assigned to a counselor to discuss any of the topics that I mentioned, or if there's something I didn't think of, you'll get assigned to a counselor in your region. We are a big state. We have centers throughout the state. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to questions.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. We have lots of questions as always. And so far I've done my best to guide people to the njsbdc.com/startup link if they require in-depth and detailed answers. So if I've answered your question already in the chat, please don't think that, the question has been dismissed or anything. It's just that, respective of everyone's time in the webinar, we'd like to talk to you in depth and help you as much as we can. So that's why if I answered your question with the link, then please go and register and we'd love to talk to you. Before we jump right into the Q&A session, let me just remind everybody that this webinar has been recorded since the beginning. If you had to leave right now, or if you had to leave after whatever you'd like to rewatch, then this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. And please remember, this is the 13th session in the webinar series. So we've done other 12 webinars just like this one. So you can find information related to this. So not only can you find us on our YouTube channel, just put NJSBDC into the YouTube, and then into the YouTube search bar, and go to our video library. I will also just show njsbdc.com, the webpage, after. What else? Vanessa, we do provide counseling in Spanish, right? So if you are requiring assistance, counseling assistance or a webinar assistance in Spanish, please let us know, or register and let us know that you require that you'd like to talk to someone who speaks Spanish, so we can do that as well. And let's now move on to the Q&A. Awesome. So we'll go in the order that we received them. Anonymous asks, for sole proprietorship with EIN, is it possible to request IRS to transfer the EIN to when converting the sole proprietorship to an S Corp, single owner?
No, it's not. I know at least for, I'm sure it's the same for the corporation, but if you're a sole proprietor and you have an EIN and you decide, say, tomorrow to form an LLC or incorporate instead, you have to get a new tax ID number.
Got it. Thank you. Next question is, what if you haven't made any money as a sole proprietor? Do you still need a Schedule C attached to your taxes?
Well, I'm going to preface everything by saying I'm not an accountant, but my understanding is if you don't have income, you don't pay income tax. So that's pretty, I think that can be, that's pretty much rule of thumb. Sometimes there are certain businesses that even though you're not making any, so the difference between not doing anything and you're not making any money, because you just started it but nothing happened and you're not doing anything, then no, no income, no business transactions, that's fine. If you're actually though working in your business and it's just a matter of, well, I wasn't profitable, then you still need to file a Schedule C. And you would want to talk to your accountant about it because you did have sales, you did have expenses. And if you operating at a loss, then you want your taxes to reflect that, because that could actually maybe help you in your tax burden. So it just depends. And there's certain businesses where you might be in a research and development phase and you're investing, and there's companies that sometimes don't make money for a couple of years. But if you're incurring business expenses and you're spending time on something, then you want to document on a tax form what it is that your business is doing.
Got it. Thank you. Next question we have is S Corp technically LLC or corporation?
All right, so this is a common. I always try to be clear, but I'm glad you asked it because I'm going to say it. I'm going to try to really spell it out. Hopefully it's clear. And if I'm not clear, please ask again. You have an LLC, which is a limited liability company, and it has a set formation requirement. And you have a corporation, and that has a set requirement, for its formation. That's it. Those are the two business structures. If the S Corp isn't so much a structure in itself, it's a place that you can go to. If you look at the continuum, you have the LLC here, you have a corporation here. Once you're one or the other, you can then become, if you're a corporation, you can become an S Corp. And there are stipulations. You can incorporate and say, I'd like to be an S Corp because I have 100 or fewer shareholders. They're all common stock. There's requirements, and you can take your C Corp and become an S Corp. And there's certain tax implications of taking that C Corp, becoming the S Corp. And now you don't have the double taxation, all that. The LLC never becomes an S Corp unless it wants to dissolve and incorporate and become an S Corp. The LLC can choose to be taxed as if it was an S Corp. So it's an LLC, still an LLC, but when it comes tax time, it'll fill out all the paperwork as if it was an S corp. Does that make sense? Or what do you think it was? Do you think that was a good explanation, or I can say
I
it
think
again?
that was a good, easy explanation.
I hope so. Ask again if that wasn't clear.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question. The annual filing for LLC with the New Jersey State, is this filing done every April, like your taxes to the IRS?
No, the annual filing, it depends. The dues are due on the anniversary of your formation date.
Got it. Next question. Denise asks, I have an LLC with a DBA. Would I be taxed only under the LLC?
Yes, a DBA is okay. Yes, the LLC is the company. It's the legal company. It's the you file your Schedule C. You apply, you pay your income taxes under the LLC legal name, and it's a tax ID number. Now, within an LLC, you could have multiple DBAs. That stands for doing business as. Those are additional names that you go by. So if you have kind of 2 or 3 different sources of revenue within your LLC that are really kind of different, and you want to be able to go around and market yourself as such, and you want to use different names, you can apply for these DBAs. And all it means is that, and I'm going to use examples. I'm Vanessa's LLC. That's my legal name. But I have 3 businesses under Vanessa's LLC. I have Vanessa's Jewelry, Vanessa's Consulting, and Vanessa's Food Service. And as long as I go ahead and file for those DBAs, each DBA costs $50 for 5 years. I can go around and market myself under any of those names because it's on record that they all belong to Vanessa's LLC. So at the end of the year, though, all the revenue I got from the jewelry business, all the revenue I got from the tutoring and from the food service, it all rolls up and it goes under one Schedule C on your tax return. And it gets filed under the umbrella.
Okay, thank you. I think we always get a lot of DBA questions. So we do have a couple more on that same topic. So Denise asks a follow-up questions to her first one. How many DBAs can I add under my LLC?
As far as I know, there is no limit. Remember, it is $50 per DBA. The only thing I would be careful about is you never want to cross or commingle different lines of business that carry different liability risk. Because remember, the LLC umbrella holds all the assets within that LLC in a protective way. So if you have a DBA because you went ahead and started, say, like a Uber business or Uber Eats or something along those lines, but also under your LLC, you own a lot of equipment or you own property, and it's all under this umbrella. If God forbid you get into a car accident and you're driving and you are sued, then you are really risking all the assets within your business, within your LLC. So that's when it might become something to consider, that you'd want to set up a separate LLC to keep the assets protected. But if it's just a matter of you have an LLC umbrella, you have a couple different business lines, no big deal, but you want to market yourself differently and you want to be known as something else, then you can probably have I don't want to be wrong. I don't believe that there's any limit in the number of DBAs.
Got it. Definitely something to Google if that's something that's
Usually this
important.
kind of information would be on the state website. And And it's, make an appointment. We can look into it together. Like sometimes, we know a bunch, but I don't just do everything off the top of my head. If you make an appointment and you counsel with us, like we'll look it up together. What we do know is we know where to go look. Like sometimes there are things I forget or I want to double check. And sometimes things change, honestly, even with the IRS.
Yes,
So we'll look it up with you.
for sure. Question from Anonymous. So if I formed an LLC, can I file as an S Corp or do I need to convert the business type?
Can you read that again?
Yep. They ask if I formed an LLC, can I file as an S Corp or do I need to convert the business type?
Okay, so you're an LLC, you're going to stay an LLC, you want to be an LLC. And you want to be taxed as an S Corp, there's paperwork to do that. There's a form you file out to change your entity. It's a tax election document, but you're always the LLC. If you're an LLC who says, you know what, I'd like to be an S Corp, then you have to form a corporation. Forget the LLC. You're now not an LLC anymore. You're a corporation and you have to file to become an S Corp. So remember, S Corps are basically derivatives of corporations. LLCs are LLCs that have options to be taxed as an S Corp. So if you're already an LLC and you're doing a Schedule C, but you think it's time to be taxed as an S Corp because there's a tax advantage to that, then there's a form. It's an IRS form. I think it's called the 8832. I would talk to an accountant about it. I'd make sure. And there's certain criteria and you can now elect to be taxed as an S Corp, but you're still an LLC. I'm going to say it again. If you want to actually be an S Corp, then forget the LLC. You incorporate, you become a corporation. You get a board of directors, you do bylaws, you have shareholder meetings, and to avoid the double taxation, you then go ahead and apply for S Corp status. And now you are an S Corp. So there's one is actually an S Corp, which is a derivative of a corporation. The other is an LLC that gets to choose to be taxed as an S Corp.
Understood. Thank you. Next question is, let's see, we've sort of answered the DBA questions. And if there's always a lot to talk about in depth about DBA. So for now, we'll address other questions. And I would say that all the DBA questions, we'll sort of leave that for counseling session. Because we sort of see those questions come up repeatedly. All right, so Hussein asks, can you talk briefly about dissolving an LLC?
Oh, yeah, sure. So to dissolve an LLC, the state, it can be done online. If the simplest way to answer that is that the state will charge you $125 to dissolve the LLC. So yes, it's the same amount of money to form as it is to dissolve. And there's a process that you would fill that out online. That's like the easiest answer. If it's more complicated than that, in addition to what you have to do online to dissolve it, to fill out the paperwork and pay the $125, if it involves more than one member, if it involves distribution of assets, that's where that operating agreement comes in. It could be more complicated because there is a kind of a wind down period for selling off any assets. But if it's one of these things where, either way, the actual mechanism to dissolve is done online. But if it's just one of these things where you formed an LLC years ago, you never used it, you don't want it lingering around out there, and you don't want to pay your $75 a year, then you can go online, you can simply dissolve it by paying $125.
Got it. Thank you. We have two questions. They're very similar, and they're both asking about how business owners are notified. So Hussein asks, does state of New Jersey send out dues through a third party? Is it sent by New Jersey? I ask because I receive mailings that look very suspicious to me, like it's not a New Jersey entity. And Wendy asked, I haven't received a notice from my company. My anniversary was February 19th of this year. How will I be notified to pay my annual report? Is there something I need to do? So if we can
Great,
address that.
great questions. These are such good questions. Okay. So they're so great that I can't even remember them. No, I know they were similar but different. So when you're your own registered agent, you'll get all the paperwork. And it's really a horrible thing because you are correct. There are a number of third-party solicitors out there that are trying to get you to pay them so they could pay your annual dues. So for example, you have to pay $75 a year to maintain your LLC. And if you're the registered agent, you'll get the notifications, and probably about 2 months before they're due, you'll get something from the state. Literally, it's from the state. It should be the Division of Revenue and Enterprise Services that says you're coming up on your year anniversary. Here are the instructions for filing your annual report. It's $75. Please take care of this. What you will also see is maybe a couple months before that, you're going to get some letter that looks really legit that is going to ask you for your legal name, your tax ID. They're going to say, because they have on record, they know your annual dues are coming up because it is public when you form. And they'll say, please write a check for $150, sign here, and make sure, you're going to get in big trouble if you don't do this. Your annual dues are due. Okay, you do that, they take your money, and then they go log on and they pay your $75 for you, hit submit, and now they've made all this money on you. So they are, it is a service. I mean, they're not, I want to say it's a scam, but really they're providing you a service, right? You don't know any better. You're filling it out. They're taking your information, they're taking your money, and they're doing it for you. Okay. That is not necessary. First of all, you don't throw those away. It's only $75, and you do it yourself. You do it right online. Now, having said all of that, if you paid like LegalZoom or Zen Business, or have a registered agent that was set up and you hired a registered agent, all this paperwork is going to them. And I think what I understand from LegalZoom is you are paying them an annual service fee to not only be a registered agent, but to take care of any filings. So my understanding is that maybe LegalZoom will charge a couple $100 a year. What are they doing? Okay, so maybe they're serving as your registered agent because you don't want your address out there. Okay, there are services that will do that for $49 a year, and they'll make sure they digitize all the mail and you'll get it and all that. But what LegalZoom is also saying that they're doing, and they are, I guess, is they're paying your annual dues for you. But I mean, what do you really need them for to pay your annual dues? You can do that yourself. So if you're not getting paperwork at all, then it's probably because your registered agent is not you, it's going somewhere else. But they should be at least sending you digitized mail so you can see what the mail is. It's really unfortunate, and that's why it's good you're learning this, because it can be fixed. You can always change your registered agent. Say you don't want to have LegalZoomers in business as a registered agent anymore. You say, you know what? I don't need to be paying them. I'm happy to be my own registered agent, or I'd like to maybe go somewhere where it's cheaper, where they may serve as my registered agent, but I could still pay my own annual dues. because they'll send me the mail, I'll see it and I'll log on and pay my $75. So if you're not, that's something to look at. It only costs $25 to change your registered agent, and it can all be done right on the New Jersey portal. So I hope that answers the question. If you have any specific questions, want us to look into it, just make an appointment and we'll work, we'll help you.
Yeah. If I can just add something of my own there, my personal experience. When I had registered my LLC 2 years ago, or like last year or something, you can immediately see the difference in the mail that comes in for you. So there will always be a difference with the actual mail that comes addressed to you or your business. So state of New Jersey, always look for the logo, always look for the name of the entity, whether it's Department of Treasury, Department of, Revenue, and whatever it is. Always look for the logo and the official title and the name and everything. And something that I like to go for is like those kinds of mail, not always, but sometimes, most of the time, they will always have those, like, those little things that you fold and rip off.
Yeah.
Right? That's something that I look for if I'm not entirely too sure. So state of New Jersey will always send those, like, you fold the top, you fold the sides, you rip them off, then it like unfolds. You see,
Those are from the state. Those are typically from the state.
Exactly. So look for the logo, look for the name. You will get a lot of unnecessary emails and also mails that, will ask you for do this, and that. And for annual reports and things like that, they do send you mail. So if you're not getting them, then that's something that you should definitely investigate. But so far in the past year, 2 years, I've gotten my mail with reminders and dues and things like that. And I've just gone online and paid my dues. All right, so just my own tidbit. Sorry.
No,
Moving on.
that's a great piece of advice, and looking for like the ones that you rip open. But you know what? I'll just tell you one last thing about that. My understanding is that these third-party solicitors have gotten, more savvy over the years, and now
for sure
they have Trenton addresses, and it is tricky.
It is, yes. So it's okay, and it's hard to tell. Completely okay. But just always do your research. All right, so we are hitting the 118 mark. We like to go until 1:30 as the time goes on. So we'll try to answer the questions up until 1:30. We want to be respectful of your time. So next question is from Stephanie. Stephanie asks, do you have to register separate LLCs for each state? For example, can you register in New Jersey, but you live in New York?
Okay, so it depends. So let's just, I think the best way to explain this is just give an example. I live in New Jersey. I work in New Jersey. I have a LLC in New Jersey. But for whatever reason, I'm in New York a bunch, and I have a physical location in New York where I'll also conduct my business in New York physically. I'm there and transacting business there where I have a location. Then what you do is you don't have to create a New York LLC. It's not like that. You take your New Jersey LLC, and it's called registering as a foreign. So you would go onto the New York Department of State website, and they'll say, what do you want to do? Oh, I'd like to register a foreign LLC. And then they'll say, okay, well, upload your certificate of formation or upload your paperwork from New Jersey. So they see it's done, and you'll pay the fee, and then you'll be able to register your business in New York, excuse me. And same goes for if you are operating, and there'll be, say you have you're in Pennsylvania, you have an LLC, you've lived in Pennsylvania, but sometimes you come over into New Jersey and you do different things, and you're set it, you have a presence, you have a location in New Jersey, and you want to transact business in New Jersey as well. then what you have to do typically there is you take your Pennsylvania LLC, you log on to the New Jersey Division of Revenue and Enterprise Services, and they say, what do you want to do? I want to form a New Jersey foreign LLC. It's foreign because its home base is Pennsylvania. It's called a foreign. And then you pay there's a fee, you pay, and you take that foreign, which is derived from the Pennsylvania, and you register to do business in New Jersey. And that's, you'll have a registered agent, and you'll have to have a physical location. You'll have to have a New Jersey registered agent, that sort of thing. So that's how that works. Now, that's when you have it depends, but that's typically because you are really operating in both places. But if you're in New Jersey and you're just selling goods and someone bought your goods in Pennsylvania and you're shipping it, no, that's not what that is. So I hope that answers the question. I really do think like you don't have to do that. Or if you're traveling to California to give a presentation, and someone is paying you to do that for whatever reason, no, you don't register. It's more if you have either a physical presence or a setup, or you're doing business there, that you have to do that. Or there are examples, if you're, say, this was an example of someone in a different state that wanted to do business with, say, Rutgers University, and they have an LLC that's in Texas, but they want to sell their consulting services. If you are a state institution or you're doing business with the government, there are additional requirements. So that LLC that was set up in Texas, they're not just going to hire you for their consulting services. You are supposed to show that you are registered to do business in the state in order to do business with a state entity. So that has an additional stipulation. But anything that's, unique to what you're doing, best to make an appointment and we can talk about it one-on-one.
Heard it. We'll take two more questions. Hussein asks, can you show if a business is registered in New Jersey? Not your own, but you're checking to see if a business is registered to conduct business in New Jersey.
Yes, you can. If you go to the NJ portal and navigate through there, and you find something like search for business records, you'll pop up on, if we have a minute, I can probably show you.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what? I don't think we have time, but my computer will crash. I won't take the time to do it. But it'll prompt you to put the first four letters of your business name, and then it'll want to identify you either using a tax ID or using your entity identification number from your formation number from the certificate of formation. And if you're registered, your registration certificate will pop up. So yes, the answer is yes. If you have any issues with that, make an appointment. We'll help you.
Got it. One last question, and I've just put the njportal.com website in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yep. Last question, Quentin asks, can a registered agent be any family member living in New Jersey?
Yes. Yes, as long as it's a house, a street address, and it's that's fine.
Awesome. And that concludes our Q&A session. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank
I
you.
will start sharing my screen very quickly. We have 5 minutes. Oh, here it is. This is the njportal.com
Oh,
website.
yeah. If you go down, there's
business record search, business name
records.
search, business formation, registration, all of the good stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of different services that you can use. All right, quickly, NJSBDC.com. This is our website, webpage. I think it's a great resource. Please take out 3 to 5 minutes of your time to look through this. We have resources and data. This is our resources toolkit. That's something that you should definitely be keeping an eye on, whether it's weekly bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. I think this is a great resource hub that we've compiled, whether it's federal resources, state resources, always keep an eye on them. Then we have our blog post, we have podcasts, things like that. So definitely check those out. And as soon as you visit, you put your email, you put your county, and you can request counseling, and it will direct you to the right page. But this is general counseling. So if you remember Vanessa's page slide about, offering services besides the non-startup and non-registration, then this is something that you will do. But if you want to speak with Vanessa and her team, then that's the njsbdc.com/startup. Then we have our video library right over here. We have tons and tons and tons of webinars. So I know there were questions about procurement and certifications. So we have those webinars in existence already. Keep scrolling and you'll keep finding them. If you'd like to receive updates about what's happening in our network, as well as what's happening next week or on Tuesdays, Thursdays, events and training, then definitely sign up. And quickly, the next page is the statewide events. So this is, what all the centers, if you remember from the map, every center offers. You can find that here. All sorts of topics, any topic, honestly, they're listed here. Some of them will require that you pay a small fee. Most of them are online and free. There are webinars and events in Spanish, just like you see here. Foodpreneur Recipe for Success webinar. I mean, all sorts of Q&A with the IRS, tax planning. That's popular nowadays with the tax season. So I highly recommend that you check them out. Again, we do offer counseling services and events and webinars in Spanish. So if that's something that is a requirement, then always ask. All right, so upcoming webinars this Thursday on February 15th, Human Resources, a guide for small business teams with our specialty consultant, Ginny. And that is always at the same time. Our webinar is 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. If you'd like to register, go to our website that I just showed, quickly scan that QR code, and look at if this is not relevant to you, and if you know someone who could benefit from this, then please refer them to this webinar. All right, we are here to support you. We've helped 15,000 plus small businesses grow in the past 45 years. We hope that you have found value in these webinars, whether it's the startup series or it's the Thursday webinars on other topics. Thank you all so much for attending. We always appreciate your support. Please take care, stay cozy, and I'll see you all on Thursday. All right, bye.
Thank you. Bye.